Mastercard Economics Institute is out with its outlook for 2025, and it has some key insights about consumer spending. This includes spending on big-ticket items, travel, mass market versus high-end apparel, and the she-economy. Here to dig into some of them, we've got Meyer, who is the chief economist at the Mastercard Economics Institute. Great to have you here in studio with us, Michelle.
Fun to be here.
We got to dive into some of these expectations, and we'll start with the big-ticket items in 2025. What are the anticipations there?
Yeah, so when we think about overall trends in 2025, we're looking for the global economy to expand 3.2%, which is a little bit above the trend that it saw in 2024. General continued outperformance in the U.S. here with this exceptionalism story continuing. We saw the momentum from 2024 with the holiday shopping season coming in strong, and we continue to see an environment where consumers are going to be actively participating and engaged in the economy. India is another story, another economy that is still shining bright given some of the structural changes that have been very favorable. And the GCC, when you think about some of the dynamics in the Gulf, where there's, again, a narrative of not just growth in the short term, but potentially continuing into the longer term.
One item that I really liked within this report, and it's reminded me to schedule my days off, I really liked the travel wins here.
Yeah.
All right, or travel twins, I should say. Travel twins, what exactly does this entail?
Sure. So there's a lot of focus on the travel economy, as there should be, right? Coming out of the pandemic, all of that pent-up demand to get back out, to have experiences, to travel, to see the world again after not being able to. But, you know, when you think about how consumers are choosing where they're going and why they're going, affordability matters, and convenience and the ability to get to certain locations matter as well. So we looked at some of the big areas that people travel, and then we matched to their quote-unquote twins. Those locations that are not as actively visited, maybe more affordable, more reachable, and it's fascinating to see these trends where the twins last year in 2024 saw faster growth in hotel spending, and we think that that should continue into 25 as consumers are really mindful of how they're spending and again, why they're spending and how they get the best value.
Okay, so just to pause for a second
Yes.
and spend a beat on the spending on the experience economy and spending on services versus the goods spending and those big ticket items that we were talking about. Are we anticipating that people will spend more on big ticket items this year, even knowing where travel has been valued as well?
Yeah, so we do think that there'll be more of a balanced budget as we look at balanced basket, I should say, as we look at into 2025. And we saw some evidence of that in 24 in the holiday shopping season, where categories like jewelry showed a lot of strength, electronics, certain technology items, where the combination of promotions and frankly the replacement cycle likely mattered for those categories. But I do think it's the experiences that were so important to the consumer the last few years. It's still the case that that's something that's valued. It's just that consumers are being a little bit more mindful around how they're spending and engaging because we know that price levels have increased. It's expensive to go out and travel. You still want to do it, but you want to do it where you get the most amount of value. Right. So overall, yes, a bit more balanced basket than maybe we saw early 24 and certainly in 23, but one where consumers are still engaging with that mind of how they get the best value. So
one of the other things that you identified is mass market versus high-end apparel here.
Yeah.
And this perhaps ties back into the kind of balling on a budget that you were just mentioning a moment ago. What are you seeing there, and how is the consumer mindset shaping up?
This was a really fun analysis. I'm glad you brought this one up as well, because given the nature of our data and the fact that we're able to have such granularity in terms of spending across different categories and across different countries, we looked at 26 countries, and we're able to categorize spending on mass market versus these really uber luxury names, like, so think really luxury. And in 85% of the countries, we saw faster growth in mass market than we did in the luxury names. The exceptions being Mexico and Japan, where luxury spending outperformed. In a place like Japan, that can make a lot of sense given the amount of tourism that moved in with the strong dollar relative to the weaker yen, a lot of international visitors that were out there spending and embracing the luxury market there.
Interesting. Okay. While we have you here, we got to talk about the she economy. I mean,
yeah.
You think a couple summers ago, and it was Taylor Swift, it was Beyonce driving the she economy and the experience economy. Then, are we looking for a resurgence, a reboot, if you will, in the she economy?
Yeah, I don't think the story has gone away. I just think it continues to transform the she economy and how you think about it. So of course you have these phenomenon, as you mentioned, T Swift, that are taking over in terms of how people are spending and engaging and creating a lot of life into the economy. But I would also argue that The other dynamic that's fascinating that we explore in the piece is the engagement of female workers in the labor market. So across, again, the global economy, a very clear theme was that the participation rate for women aged under 54, so kind of that cyclical dynamic of the workforce, we had a much faster increase in participation amongst the women of that age than men, and that was across many different economies.